Hello, my friends. My name is Ezra Levance. I'm the boss at rebelnews.com. Thanks for joining us. Every weekday at 12 noon Eastern time, we do a live stream with a super chat. That's what we're going to do today. I'm in the seat Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Sheila Gunn reads Tuesday, Thursday. Today is a different day, a very special day. There are two important things going on today I want to talk about. Obviously, we're going to take your super chats. That's how we pay the bills around here. A super chat is when you throw a few dollars, frankly, of any currency behind your chat. It makes it in a bright color and keeps it at the top of the chat window there for a while. We love that because Google actually gives us 70% of the super chat money, so it has become an important source of income for us. Thank you. Today we're going to talk about two important things. Did you know the rebel is in court right now? Right now. Boom. In fact, as we went live at 12 noon Eastern time, that is precisely when the hearing in the Court of Queen's Bench of Alberta in Edmonton, Judicial District of Edmonton, is hearing the judicial review of the censorship of Rebel News by Rachel Notley's hand-picked election commissioner 2 years ago. We are in court right now. Now, I'm sitting here in Toronto, but Sheila Gunn Reid, our chief reporter, will be live tweeting the proceedings. In fact, I'm going to head on over to her Twitter page right now, if you want to do the same, Justin. I don't know if so obviously, even though it says the court starts at 10 a.m., that might be 10:05. It might be 10:10. They might just be going through some rigmarole. I don't know how much of it is live in the court and how much of it is done by Zoom. I was in the court in Edmonton a couple of weeks ago. They were proceeding as normal. Can you pull up the billboard, the Fire Egan billboard? It all started 2 years ago when we published a billboard, the one you're seeing here. It's a lot of words for a billboard. I don't mind it, but there's a lot of words on it. You know, they say 7 words or less. 40% of grade 9 students failed provincial exams. Alberta can do better than David Egan, fireegan.ca. On the left is a guy named Dave Egan. On the right is Rachel Notley. And in the middle, Fire Egan. What do you think of that? That's a billboard. So we put that billboard up on the side of the road, and, no big deal. Frankly, we've done a dozen billboards, more than that. We've probably done 20 billboards. We also like the Jumbotron trucks, the billboards driving around. What do you think of that billboard? Do you like it? Do you don't care? Do you disagree with it? There's a lot of things you can do when you see that billboard. You can ignore it, which is what most people do. You can agree with it, which is some people do. You can counter it with your own billboard. You can talk about it. Welcome to life. But what did Rachel Notley do? And what did Dave Egan do? Well, they do what authoritarians everywhere do. They want to smash. They don't want to debate. And so Rachel Notley sicked her hand-picked election commissioner, a disgraced political hack by the name of Lorne Gibson, dispatched him to prosecute us for that billboard. And I know you are saying right now, how do you prosecute someone for a billboard? Like there wasn't even any bad language on there. There wasn't even any hate speech on there. Now, was there? So how do you prosecute a billboard that's simply a political statement? Fire Egan. And really, how do you fire Egan? Egan was a cabinet minister. So it's really, in a way, it's a message to Rachel Notley to fire Egan. Notley was on the picture. How else do you fire Egan? Voters, it wasn't during an election, so how do you fire Egan? Well, Rachel Notley, of course she was going to ignore it, but it was making the point that she should fire Egan. Why didn't she just ignore that sign? Or get her union friends to put up Dave Egan is so great billboard right next to it. Well, they sent Lauren Gibson to attack us. And I don't know if the documents are up at rebeltrial.com, but we're setting up a website this morning for our trial. Let's on rebeltrial.com. Are there any documents on there yet? Not yet. There's some stuff. Oh, did it say? Oh, yeah, there's some documents. So this is the lawsuit. Scroll down a little bit. The letters. Looks like they're still working on it. Within the next 15 minutes, I expect this site to be up and at 'em, I'm sure. And then when we get the letters up there, Justin will come back. Let me tell you what the letters showed. We got a letter right before Christmas, 2018, saying this is an illegal billboard. Well, I'm not that dumb. I hired the best free speech lawyer in Edmonton, and it was like on the eve of Christmas. I think it was like December 23rd. All the courts were shutting down. All the lawyers were shutting down. So my Top Gun lawyer sends a letter to the election commissioner, say, hey there, we're on the file. We're heading into Christmas. We'll get back to you in the new year. Don't do anything without notice to us. See you in the new year. Happy to engage. And yeah, you found it. Good work. So, okay, hold on a second. So you're jumping ahead here. No problem. You're jumping ahead. So that was in December. In January, our lawyer writes and says, all right, we're ready to make representations. The next day, we're convicted. So our lawyer wrote back immediately in December saying, okay, we're on the file. It's almost Christmas. Nothing's going to happen over Christmas. See you in the new year. We're on the file. Don't do anything without notice to us. Election commissioner says no problem. New year comes. Our lawyer says, okay, we're ready to engage. Election commissioner says, okay. And then the next day they convict us. No hearing. They knew we had a lawyer. They didn't let the lawyer. It was a secret trial. I don't even think it was a trial. I think they just decided. And I think that letter there that you're showing me, thanks to the letter you put up there a minute ago, Justin, was the, let's take a look here. That's the letter of reprimand. It's getting a little bit ahead of the story. There was an earlier letter, I think it was in January. I know there's so many letters here. There was a letter that convicted us and gave us a $5,500 fine. Okay, so you had a trial without us, even though you knew we had a lawyer. You didn't hear the other side of the story, and you just gave us a $5,500 fine? So we wrote back saying that's illegal, we're going to appeal, you are ridiculous. And they said, oh, no, please don't appeal. Don't take us to a real court. Will that fine thing that we put in writing when we convicted you in absentia, you're really going to take that to a real judge to look over what we're doing here? Ooh, we didn't expect that. We didn't let you speak at the trial. It was a secret trial. We told you you would have time to make representations. We lied. We've really shat the bed here. And you're going to have a Court of Queen's Bench judge look over our work? Hey guys, that whole $5,500 fine thing, can we just forget about that? And we'll have a reprimand instead. So you guys don't need to go to court now because you don't want a court looking through this stuff. And you don't need to, guys, because that $5,500 fine, we can make that go away because that's how it works. When you're fair, we'll just make it go away. You're going to take this to court? No. Please don't take us to court. That $5,500 fine, we're going to make that disappear. We're just going to give you a reprimand so you don't have to go to court. Look, there's only one person who gives me reprimands, and her name is Mom. I'll take a reprimand from my mom. I don't think I take reprimands from anyone else. Do I? I'm trying to think if I do. I don't think I do. Let me check. No, I don't. So the government of Alberta says we're going to reprimand you for a billboard. Now, if I was speeding, I do take reprimands from cops. If I'm speeding, if I'm going 60 in a 50 zone and a cop says, whoa, you slow down, I'm going to let you go, no ticket, but you careful now. Okay, I'm going to call that a reprimand. I do accept reprimands from someone other than my mom. If a cop pulls me over, he's got me dead to rights, I was going 60 in a 50 zone, And he says, you fly straight. And I said, officer, will do. I accept your reprimand. You're right. I do accept reprimands. Justin says he's got the letter. So look at that. Yeah, January 14th. And look at the headline. It's so important you see that headline. Notice of adverse finding and proposed penalty. So they've already convicted us. That's what an adverse finding is. Dear sirs, I write in relation to an investigation undertaken by my office regarding a complaint from Elections Alberta that the Rebel News Network Limited engaged in political advertising while not registered in violation of this section. And it describes the billboard, and then scroll down, blah, blah, blah. Findings of the investigation. In November, Rebel sponsored an ad in the form of a billboard. The message was political advertising. Third-party advertising that occurs in the period commencing December 1 and blah, blah, blah. In sponsoring the political ad, Rebel spent $1,000. Rebel identifies itself as a fearless source of news, opinion, and activism. According to the legislation, you're required to be registered. Notice of proposed penalty, scroll down a bit. Here's the law, and we're going to hit you with up to $100,000. In my initial assessment, I am considering an administrative penalty of $5,500. The circumstances, blah, blah, blah. You're invited to respond. Please provide your info. So scroll up to the tippy top again. Notice of adverse finding. So they convicted us, and they're proposing the $5,500 penalty. So what's the first word? Notice of adverse finding. So they convicted us, and the proposed penalty was $5,500. We wrote back and said, oh, so you convicted us. You made an adverse finding. You said we are guilty, and now you're just saying you proposed $5,500 fine. This is a sham procedure. We're going to appeal. That's when they panicked and said, oh, no. It's just a reprimand. But sorry, mate, I don't take reprimands for putting up political billboards. In fact, if you're going to reprimand me for putting up a political billboard, I got to tell you a little secret about myself. That's going to make me put up more political billboards. You know, I mean, it's not a very complicated algorithm with me. If you tell me I can't say something, that's how I'm going to say it. At least if you're with the government. Like Rachel Notley's handpicked election commissioner telling me I can't put up a billboard telling Rachel Notley to sack her terrible education minister, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So that was 2018. They convicted us. That's a fact. Proposed $5,500 penalty. We said, we're not participating in your sham process. See you in court. They said, oh, no, please. Can we just call it evens and, you know, have a reprimand? To which we said no. And we appealed the decision in what's called a judicial review. So we were taking this little kangaroo court sham BS censorship thing from Elections Alberta, and we're going to a real court. And we did that in early 2019. Well, a few months later, Rachel Notley was fired by Alberta voters, and the election commissioner himself was sacked because he's such a disgrace. Okay, so what happens to our case? I mean, it was illegal, unconstitutional, ridiculous. Even the election commissioner obviously didn't want it to happen, obviously. But the government of Alberta continued with its fighting us. They were adamant, no. They insist on reprimanding us. Hang on. So Rachel Notley lost the election, was thrown out, replaced by Jason Kenney. The election commissioner, disgraced, sacked, terrible, goodbye, gone. In fact, they actually collapsed the whole election commissioner's office and just put it in part of Elections Alberta. The whole thing was a terrible misadventure, authoritarian bullies on the left, censorship. We all acknowledge that now. So why is the government of Alberta fighting us in court this minute? Not just this morning, this minute. Let's go check Sheila's Twitter feed. Is Sheila tweeting from the court? I hear in my ear she's got one tweet so far. I am live tweeting court today for the judicial review of the unconstitutional actions of the Alberta Elections Commissioner when they find us in a secret trial for putting up a billboard critical of Notley's failed education minister, David Eggen. Follow at rebeltrial.com. All right. So I look forward to watching Sheila's tweets. Now, the fact that you say that's her one tweet tells me they're getting off to maybe a slow start. You never know what's going to happen in court. There could be a procedural thing. Who knows? She just tweeted a second one. Michael Swanberg is our lawyer, one of the top free speech lawyers in the province, if not the country. Nice to see James Kitchen from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms in court as an observer. We have spent thousands to make these election cops show a real judge their work. I am excited about Sheila live tweeting from court. It's something I've done quite a bit, actually, but ironically, not even from Canada. Most of my courtroom live tweeting has been from the United Kingdom, where I have live tweeted probably half a dozen hearings, or maybe 10. Tommy Robinson, mainly at the Old Bailey, also the Royal Courts of Justice in the Strand, and even in Peterborough, which is what they call Peterborough over there. I can't even remember all the courts I've been to with Tommy. Some of them so often that I even recognize the clerks and the ushers and the security staff. I was there so often. So I've done a lot of live tweeting from courts, and I really like it because I'm sort of a fast typist. So it's not like a stenography. I'm not that fast a typist, but I can do a lot of tweets, and people rely on them because either there's no media in the courtroom, and it sounds like Sheila's the only journalist in there, or in the case of Tommy, you had a lot of other media in the court, but they were liars. The BBC, ITV, Channel 4, all the tabloids. I hate Tommy. So I felt it was very important, I was in the court, to have a contemporaneous record exposing the BS of the mainstream media. So I really enjoyed my live tweeting from the courts in the United Kingdom. That's what Sheila is doing today. So I encourage you, and I think that hearing is going to go on for several hours. Now, can you just go quickly to rebeltrial.com? Let's see how some of the documents are coming along. I think Sarah was uploading some more legal documents as we went. We just decided to put up this website this morning, so we're still building it. And you saw those documents that Justin was going through. So here's the website. And you can chip in if you want to help us cover the cost of the legals. I'd be most grateful if you would. There's Sheila's tweets. That's great. Lots of tweets. Oh, that's her whole Twitter feed. That's great. And then there's the legal brief. Is the legal brief above that or below that? Is that that looks like, is that the legal brief? What is that? There's a lot of documents there. Those are actual court documents. The red means it's amended. I think that's our amended claim. There's a lot of stuff there. I mean, if you're interested in this case, you've got an hour's worth of homework there. Maybe you send a note to Sarah to check on some of those. She's working on it. Okay, don't send a note. She's working hard. So I'm excited. I wanted to tell you the story. Number one, it's a little bit crazy that happened to us in the beginning, in the first place, that we were convicted of having a billboard. Yeah, that's not a thing that you convict people for in a free country. Number two, it was crazy that when we said we're going to appeal, they said, whoa, don't do that. Just don't take it to court. Just take the reprimand. It's crazy that they think I accept reprimands from anyone other than my mom or a cop who's caught me speeding. Number three, and number four, who knows? It's the next number. It's crazy that we had to appeal and that they didn't drop it right away. It's super duper triple crazy that this is happening on Jason Kenney's watch. Why? I'm going to estimate, I know how much money we've spent. It's about 50 grand. I checked with our lawyer today. Today alone is going to be 10,000. I hate to say it. You send in there's nothing more expensive than a cheap lawyer. You send in the cheapest lawyer, you hire lawyers based on who's cheap. You get what you pay for. You know, what do they call the student who came in absolutely last in his graduating class at law school? What do you call that kid? You call that kid a lawyer. You call that kid a lawyer. So you want to hire the cheapest lawyer out there? Good luck to you. Oh, here's the legal brief. Look at that. Good work, Sarah. Thank you. There's so much reading there. Oh, look at that table of contents. Can you pump up that table of contents? So if you're interested, introduction, summary of facts and evidence, issues for judicial review, standard of review. That means on what basis can the court overturn the kangaroo court below. Law and analysis. So we just talk about, there's an affidavit there, that we show the notice of adverse finding. That was a $5,500 fine. Rebel Media was not given a reasonable opportunity to present its case. The election commissioner demonstrated a reasonable apprehension of bias. The decision was unreasonable. The court should quash the decision and not remit it back for reconsideration. So a 35-page legal brief. And that's not even the lawsuit. So I think we're probably at 100 pages worth of stuff. If you're interested, it's a good read. But if you know what, there's a lot of paperwork there. I think we've spent about 50 grand. Today alone is going to be about 10 grand. It costs money to fight. Tell you one thing, the crazy part is we're paying for both sides of this fight. We're paying for our own legal bills, and through our taxes, we're paying for the government's legal bills. The government of Alberta has spent, I'm going to estimate, $250,000 fighting us over this stupid billboard. And you're probably saying, Ezra, they said they'd let you go just with a reprimand, like your mom or like the cops. Why don't you just take your reprimand? Why don't you let them wrap your knuckles? It's no big deal. It's just words on a page. Reprimand. Come on, why are you spending 50 grand? Why are you being so punctilious? Why are you pettifogging? Why such jiggery-pokery? It's not being punctilious. It's not pettifogging. It's not jiggery-pokery. When the government of your country reprimands you for criticizing them, I'm sorry, I'm just really practicing not swearing right now because I feel it welling up within me. Imagine I'm swearing a bunch of swears right now, okay? You have to fight back. You cannot accept a government reprimanding you for criticizing the government. It's not about money at all. In fact, in some weird way, reprimanding me is even more offensive than asking me for money. Governments every day take my money. They fine me for this, they tax me for that, they have a levy, they have a fee, they have a charge. Yeah, we know, governments like money. We know. But a reprimand says who? From whom? By what right? Like, you want to take my money, all right. It's another day ending in the letter Y. But you are reprimanding me for my political views? Who the F-U-C-K are you to reprimand me for expressing myself? Oh, I'm going to fight this to the Supreme Court. Reprimand. You're reprimanding me? And the thing is, I got to tell you, as my old friend John O'Sullivan used to say, and I'm sure someone said it before him, but O'Sullivan's the guy who introduced me to it, he always said, it's easier to fight in the first stitch than the last. And if you don't nip it in the bud, if you don't pull out the weed right away when it's little, it will grow. And remember, this happened in 2018. Well, in 2020, I was summoned by the federal election commissioner for something very similar. I wrote a book called The Libranos. And I was summoned and I was interrogated by two 30-year veterans of the RCMP. Do you want to throw a little bit of that clip up just for fun? Now, I've learned a few things in my old age, so I thought, no one's going to believe me that I was interrogated for writing a book. No one's going to believe that. unless I video it. So I brought in 2 hidden cameras. And I'm going to tell you how I brought them in because I was pretty sneaky. And look at that. Look at that. Pump up the volume.
It's not a secret complaint. It's just a complaint that's part of the investigation. And to keep the integrity of the investigation right now, you'll understand that we can't share everything that we have.
Oh, I don't want everything that you had. If I'm here to meet a complaint, but you won't show me the complaint, how can I possibly meet the complaint? How can I possibly respond to something that you won't show me?
Well, though, I think the letter was quite clear on what the infraction is alleged, and this is what we want to clarify with you.
Well, did you generate the complaint, or was it from an outside party?
No, we didn't generate the complaint.
Okay, so
the
someone
did not generate the complaint.
So someone external to your office generated the complaint?
That is usually the case.
Is that the case in this case?
Yeah. Yeah, we did not generate the complaint.
Okay, was it the Liberal Party that generated the
We can't
complaint?
go into that, sir.
So you won't tell me who the complaint is? The complainant is? That's a secret?
Yeah, no, not at this point.
So at what point do you tell me who the
The
secret
commissioner
complaint
is the ultimate responsible person for the investigation and how this is decided.
So how do I know what conduct has been complained about if you won't tell me?
Now, this went on for some time. They kept referring. Yeah. Can you imagine that? I don't know if you got what was going on there. So I wrote a book called The Libranos, blah, blah, blah. I think we had some billboards for that too. That's what we do. We like the billboards, we like the ads, whatever. It's a book. You sell a book. How do you sell a book? You sell a book with ads or whatever. So they said there was a complaint against the act or something. They summoned me to Ottawa. I said, okay, well, can I see the complaint? No. Okay, well, can you tell me who complained? No. It's a secret. How long is it going to be a secret for? Well, as long as we say. It wasn't the Liberals who complained. We can't tell you. Can you imagine those shenanigans? Anyhow, that went on. I recommend you watch that video. It's a good video if I may say so myself. But do you see my big point? If you don't fight in the first ditch, you're going to wind up fighting in the last ditch. So we have to fight the Alberta Election Commissioner because we got to stomp that out before the fire spreads. Sheila's tweeting. Our lawyer, Michael Swanberg, to Judge Michael Fima. Election Commissioner denied Rebel News procedural fairness, redisclosure, and time to respond. Election Commissioner was biased against Rebel News. Election Commissioner was unreasonable based on the exemptions in the Act for Journalism. Well, that's an obvious point. I'm sorry I didn't mention that earlier. We're journalism. Opinion commentary is a form of journalism. It's often the most interesting form of journalism, if I may say so. In fact, there's a lot of jurisprudence that says political speech is the most protected speech, more even than commercial speech or just chattiness. The right to criticize the government is, in fact, the most important free speech right. You can have your gardening books or your recipes or your sports news, and that's all interesting and that's all meaningful to people and that's all valuable and that's all part of life. But if we're talking about legal protection, the right to poke at the man, the right to criticize your boss of the country, not your boss in the company, but the one who claims to lord it over you, the one who claims to have the rights and powers over you, the right to speak truth to power. Would you agree with me that legally speaking, that's more important even than the right to write a book about recipes? And I'm not picking on recipes or anything. I'm just saying it is so important to be able to criticize your government and to have them reprimand me? I'm sorry. Let's see if there's any more tweets from Sheila, and then we're going to move on to a second subject here. Judge Fima spent 26 years at the Department of Justice. Okay, so I'm going to invite you to follow, stick with me for the next half hour. But go then, I think Sheila's going to be live tweeting for a few hours. I'm very curious what's going to be said and done in that court. All right. Do you agree with me it's an important fight to fight? I could have walked away with a reprimand. Save some money, save some hassle, save some stress, save some time. You think I should have done that? Would you have done that? I'm guessing you would have done that. You know why? Because that's the same thing to do. That's the rational thing to do from a cost-benefit analysis. If you were speeding on a highway and a cop pulled you over and said, I'm going to give you a $1,000 fine, you say, oh, I'm going to take that to court. You say, whoa, oh, no need to do that. Just give you a reprimand. You'd say, okay, you drive away and say, whoa, I dodged a bullet there. Right? You wouldn't appeal the reprimand. What kind of kook does that? Now, the speeding example is a little bit different, and I think the main difference is that speeding, we all agree that speeding's bad because it's a danger to yourself and others. But, so the reason that analogy of speeding is not actually perfect is that I do not accept that what I was pulled over for, having a billboard, is akin to speeding, because speeding is a danger to others, speeding is a danger to myself, speeding is not an enshrined right, like political speech. So if I'm actually caught doing something wrong, like speeding, I'm lucky to get off with a reprimand. There's no way I'd appeal that to the court. But I was engaging in political speech and I'm being reprimanded? No, 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 no. You don't reprimand me over that. I don't take a reprimand from the government over political speech. I don't equate political speech with speeding. I don't equate criticizing the government with a real crime. Now you might be saying, Ezra, just walk away, save yourself some money. No, no, that's what other people do. Rebel, look at our name. Rebel News. It's not obedient news. It's not establishment news. It's not submissive news. It's not the bend the knee news. If anyone's going to fight for freedom of speech, it will be us. It must be us. I'm just going to refresh Sheila's Twitter feed. I think Sheila's paying very close attention, and I look forward to reading her tweets. I tweet more like a stenographer. I tweet just everything, as fast as my fingers can go. I think Sheila is curating her tweets more carefully. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read the Super Chats now. And then I'm going to tell you about Bill 218, Bill 218 in Ontario. It's just as upsetting as what's going on in Alberta. Why is Jason Kenney allowing that, by the way? Why is Jason Kenney allowing government money to be spent to censor a billboard from 2018 criticizing the NDP? Why is that something that the Jason Kenney government thinks is important and valuable and a good use of resources? I don't get it. Why are they defending an abuse of, it's not even the money. I mean, money's one thing, but why are they defending a political decision to censor? I don't get it. Maybe he doesn't know about it. There's a lot of moving parts in the government. Hard money, $3. Fist bump, thank you. Dr. Fi, $2. Counter sue. Well, you can't really sue a government agency. You can appeal it. I mean, you can sue them if there's some manifest abuse of process or abuse of office. In this case, appealing through a judicial review is probably the legally most sensible thing to do. Bill Howie, $5. Trump at 11:20 a.m. tweeted on yesterday's Tucker expose, but was shadow banned, but wasn't banned on his Gab Mirror account. Rebels should mirror on Gab. You're talking about Tucker Carlson speaking at length last night with a business partner of Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, and all the deals they were doing with China and other places. Incredible. Equally incredible is how Twitter and others are censoring that story. I wonder, the right-wing echo chamber, as the left calls it, is soaking with that story. But is that moving any votes? Because those people were going to vote for Trump anyways. This absolutely hermetically sealed censorship of this issue by Facebook and Twitter and the mainstream media is designed to keep it in the right-wing echo chamber. If the right-wing echo chamber, and I'm using that phrase, I say because the left that's how they describe it, and maybe it's even true. A Trump voter's already going to vote for Trump. They can be extra, extra, super duper mad and still only have one vote. If that story leaked out into the general consciousness, then that's a real problem for the Democrats. So far, it's not that problem. Into the Light with Law Boss, $10. I was in Caledonia the same day David was there and missed him. I wasn't able to get much footage. 6 cruisers blocking the way, waste of money. Global and CTV were there too, wearing masks outside. That's why are you wearing a mask outside? I saw someone outside wearing a mask walking their dog this morning. There was no mask on the dog. What, you don't care about your dog? Why are you so cruel? Imagine putting a mask on a dog. It's called a muzzle. Dr. Fine, $20. Frankly, when it comes to freedom of speech in Canada, is anybody surprised at this point? Hate speech laws, the BS human rights tribunals try to pull Bill C-16, etc. I think we need stronger speech protection in the Charter. Well, look, the Charter is a piece of paper. It's how the judges apply that piece of paper and how the culture respects that piece of paper. The Soviet Union had freedoms entrenched in its constitution, whereas the United Kingdom hasn't had the same formality of constitution. It's been one of the great free countries of the last millennium. So what you have on a piece of paper is important, but it's the larger culture, it's the political culture, it's the media culture. Even the fact that we're alone in court today, doesn't that tell you something? Although the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms is there as an observer, which is better than nothing. David Anderson, $10. Ezra, if every super chatter subscribed to Rebel or joined the Rebel Producers Club, what would that do to your funding situation? Well, that would be amazing, of course. You know, every day at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I do a produced show. And Sheila Gunn-Reid and David Menzies do one a week also. So that's worth the $8 a month that our regular subscriptions are. And the Super Producers Club, we haven't had events lately because of pandemic lockdown rules. We're fighting a lot of that stuff. But I'd like to do events again as soon as possible, and God willing, in the new year. Yorgi, $5. Hey, Ezra, just curious what shaped your political worldview. For a long time, I thought I was liberal and still am in some ways. Well, I was always conservative. There was no moment in my life where I wasn't. Maybe it was from growing up in a family where my dad was conservative. My mom wasn't that political. I mean, she's become conservative over time, I think. But I don't recall her as a child being very political. My dad, as we drove to school every day, would have the radio on, and us kids would ask him questions about the news, and he would try and answer them. And this was before Google, so we took our dad's opinions, whereas now, kids might not be as likely to ask you a question. They would just Google it themselves. And if you got your answer wrong, they would Google you. Heather Skinner, $7. Sat behind you in 2018 at Tommy Robinson's trial. I've told many people how accurate your tweets were. You quoted Judge verbatim, unlike the mainstream media. That's why I follow you. Well, Heather, that's nice of you to say. I did my best to be accurate. I tried to type as quickly as I could. In the Old Bailey and other places like that, sometimes it's a little bit hard to hear. And of course, I love the British accent, but I'm not completely used to it. So the combination of legal jargon, plus a little bit, it was a little hard to hear, plus the British accent, I fear I didn't capture everything, but I sure did my best, and I think I was more accurate than the mainstream media. Tame Thing, $4, you rock as. If you love cats, you'd be perfect. Well, listen, I don't have an active antipathy towards cats. I don't go around thinking about cats. It's just that if someone says cats or dogs, I'm going to be dogs. And I'll make the case for it. But don't get me wrong, I don't go around looking to pick fights with cats or cat lovers. I just don't. In fact, in the 5.5 years we've been running Rebel News, I think that's the first time I talked about it. Oh, Sheila's got a new tweet. Let's take a little look-see there. Swanberg, that's our lawyer, begins walking the judge through our documents, sorted meticulously in chronological order. Explains there was no hearing. We were found guilty in correspondence back and forth only, which was a denial of procedural fairness. Yeah, I showed you a little bit of that. Our lawyer said, hey, it's almost Christmas. Talk to you in the new year. Their lawyer said, sure. Our lawyer said, oh, okay, it's the new year. We're ready to rock. They said, sure. And then, haha, surprise, suckers. They convicted us the next day. That ain't right. Okay, 1240. I want to take you through Bill 218. What's Bill 218? Here's a snapshot from Randy Hillier from Lanark, Carlton, an MPP who used to sit as a conservative, but now he's independent. Take a look at this.
Further debate, the member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the passage of Bill 218 will mark a very dark moment in our history. It'll mark a very ugly milestone in our history. As 170 years ago, the people of Ontario demanded responsible government, and they got it. Bill 218 ends responsible government as we know it. Bill 218 undermines and makes a mockery of the concept of ministerial responsibility. Bill 18 allows the government to conceal any incompetence, any wrongdoing, or any consequence or any remedy for incompetence and wrongdoing. These are not the hallmarks of a responsible government. Let's remember, they have killed the concept of a public inquiry to find out why those thousands of elderly people died prematurely in our long-term care. They've prevented people from learning and understanding what and how their actions may have contributed to the outcomes of COVID and their policies. They've also now removed any civil remedy for anybody who has felt that their policies may have been a contributing factor to the premature death of the elderly. Right? This government, and some people may laugh about 2,000 deaths over on the other side. I don't laugh about it. I think it's a tragic consequence of what this government has done. And they are refusing to allow anyone to have any scrutiny over their actions. Speaker, this bill is called Supporting Ontario's Recovery Act. It is better stated as concealing government actions through COVID, for that is its only purpose and its only function is to prevent an inquiry into what has happened in COVID. Not just for this government, but also for the broader public knowledge about how we ought to respond to crises. Should we respond the way this government has in the next one? We will never know, because we aren't allowed to examine and evaluate what has happened. Speaker, I find this just a brazen attack on responsible government, a brazen attack on the rule of law, and a complete extinguishing of our concepts of common law. The words cannot be found to describe my disappointment in those on the other side, or for any member who would support this bill in any fashion. If there was spine and conviction, they'd get kicked out of caucus because they should be voting against this bill. Thank you.
There's Randy Hillier from Lanark, Frontenac, and Kingston. Forgive me, I got his riding name wrong. As you know, he was elected as a Conservative, but ejected from their caucus, although he is still a party member. And he, along with Belinda Carahalios, someone who had the same thing happen to her, are the only two critics of Doug Ford's lockdown. The NDP, the Liberals, all they want the government to do is lock down harder, tax more, spend more, and especially regulate more, crush people more. I like Randy Hillier. I love to listen to him. He's got a very sonorous voice, very deep voice. Sounds like a radio voice or even a singer. He reminds me of a country lawyer, although I don't think he's a lawyer. He has a good command of the law and facts and arguments, and he's very well read. And I saw that and I thought, what's he talking about? What's Bill 218? So I called it up on the internets, and here it is. And we have 15 minutes left, but I might go 5 minutes long. I would like to read, it's a short bill. An act to enact the Supporting Ontario's Recovery Act 2020, respecting certain proceedings relating to the virus Okay, what does that mean? It's brought in by the Attorney General, and it's a government bill. Okay, scroll down a little bit. And it was just introduced a few days ago. Can we pump up the font size just one notch? Explanatory. Now, I'm just going to read this whole thing because it's not very long. Schedule 1, Supporting Ontario's Recovery Act. The Supporting Ontario's Recovery Act 2020 is enacted. Section 2 of the Act provides that no cause of action arises against any person as a direct or indirect result of an individual being or potentially being infected with or exposed to the coronavirus on or after March 17th as a direct or indirect result of an action or omission of the person. I'm going to stop there because it's a run-on sentence, which so many laws do. I want to explain 3 words here that you may not know. Cause of action. Do you see in the first sentence? This law provides that no cause of action arises. Cause of action is a fancy way of saying you can't sue. So the cause of action is another way of saying what allows you to sue. How did I hurt you? What did I do wrong to you? Did I poison you? Did I destroy you? Did I do something wrong to you? You have a cause of action against me. An action is a legal action. So why is this bill important? In the first sentence it says it. This bill, and we're going to go through it a little bit, extinguishes your ability to sue anyone for any government screw-ups, no matter how bad. Let's go through it. And it's incredible in a way. A director, if at the relevant time the person acted or made a good faith effort to act in accordance with public health guidance and any federal, provincial, or municipal law. The only exception is, as you can see in B there, the act or omission of the person does not constitute gross negligence. You see that in the middle of the page there? So you are now not allowed to sue the government for anything they did to fight the virus, as long as they weren't grossly negligent. So even if they were negligent, even if they even if they were dead wrong, even if what they did made it far worse, as long as they weren't grossly negligent, that is such a low standard. I mean, not just negligent, but grossly negligent. And then look at this next paragraph. Proceedings, that's another fancy way of saying lawsuits. Proceedings directly or indirectly based on or related to any such matter may not be brought. That means you can't sue. And any lawsuits, any that exist when the act comes into force, are deemed to have been dismissed without costs. So even if you have a lawsuit against the government right now, I'll get to that. If you have a lawsuit right now, any that exist when the act comes into force, they will be thrown out of court without cost. So judges aren't even allowed to look at them. Let's read that sentence one more time. Proceedings, that means a lawsuit. A lawsuit directly or indirectly based on or related to any such matter may not be brought. You cannot sue the government, and anyone who is suing the government when this law comes into force is dismissed without cost. That's pretty much it. Scroll down a little bit further. Then they're talking, an act to enact, Recovery Act. Then there's some definitions here. Nothing in this act shall be read as abrogating or limiting any defense or immunity that exists in law. Protection from liability. 2, subsection 1. No cause of action, that means no lawsuit, arises against any person as a direct or indirect result of an individual being or potentially being infected with or exposed to coronavirus on or after March 17th as a direct or indirect result of an act or omission of the person. Now, I've read all that before. Subsection 2, subsection 1 applies regardless of any conflict or inconsistency in the public health guidance or laws applicable to persons. Stop there. So you're not even allowed to sue if the government is full of it, if they're inconsistent, if they contradict themselves, if they flip-flop, if they change their direction. You're not allowed to sue. It applies regardless of any conflict or inconsistency. Point 3, a difference in the degree of specificity respecting a matter does not constitute a conflict. Okay, proceedings barred. No proceeding that is directly or indirectly based on or related to anything referred to may be barred. You can't sue. You can't sue. You're not allowed to sue. Oh, this part's especially outrageous. Retrospective effect. It applies regardless of whether the cause of action on which the proceeding is purportedly based arose before, on, or after this law. So any lawsuits out there right now, a judge might be really interested. A court might say, whoa, this guy's got a case. Sorry, Doug Ford says we're shutting down the courts. You're not allowed to sue. You're just not allowed to sue. Proceedings dismissed. Point 6. Any proceeding, that means a lawsuit, referred to that is commenced before this act is dismissed. Get out of court. You're fired. It's closed down. No compensation. You're not entitled to any compensation or relief for the extinguishment or termination of rights. We just extinguished your rights. We just terminated your rights, and you don't get 1 penny. We may have killed 1,000 people in old folks' homes through our stupid decisions. We may have killed 1,000 people because of the lockdown. Not only are you getting nothing for that, but you cannot sue us. Non-application required closure. Section 2 does not apply with respect to, go up a bit, with respect to acts or omissions of a person that occurred while a law required the person's operations to close in whole or in part and relate to an aspect of the person's operations that was required to close under the law. I don't really know how that applies. I don't understand that enough. Okay, and then there's some exemptions for workers' comp. Scroll down, no effect on jurisdiction, conflict, crown. This acts binds the crown, and we're done. And that's it. That's the law. That's just repealing certain sections of the law, of existing laws. Are we done? That's the whole thing? That's the whole thing. Okay, thank you for your patience. I hate reading legislation like that because legislation is written so grammatically challenging. Sentences go on and on and on and on, have subsections and semicolons and numbers. So it's really one long sentence. Often a law is like a long sentence with 10 semicolons in it. And of course it uses legalistic wording like proceedings, cause of action, dismissed without cause. What does all that mean? If I understand it correctly, I saw this first by Randy Hillier's video, and then I read the law myself, and then I just read it with you together. If I understand this correctly, you cannot sue the government for anything they've done. Now, why would you do that? Did they do something wrong they don't want us to know about? Did they screw up in the seniors' homes like Governor Cuomo in New York State did, sending all the sick COVID patients to the seniors' homes to kill thousands and thousands? Did Doug Ford do that? And if he did, can you sue? You can't sue. And one of the side effects of a lawsuit is what's called disclosure. If you sue the government about something they did wrong, you have the right to their records that touch on the matters at hand. So sometimes suing a government or another entity is the best way to learn about the government or that entity. So you will never learn about how the government's botched their response to the pandemic. And speaking in terms of your rights, you will never have redress in court. Any lawsuit you may have filed is dismissed. So I presume that Rocco Galati's lawsuit will be thrown out. And any other lawsuits will be thrown out. I just presume they'll be thrown out because Doug Ford doesn't want you to have the chance to make your case before the courts. I wonder if that's constitutional. I can't imagine it is. I've got to think that this violates. Can you throw the Charter of Rights and Freedoms up on the screen? The Charter of Rights and Freedoms is the basic law of the land. What does that mean? that means every other law has to conform to it. So, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, so Section 1, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms guarantees the rights and freedoms set out in it, subject only to such reasonable limits prescribed by law as can be demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society. So even there, that implies that you have to justify, you have to demonstrate that you can violate a freedom. Let's keep going. Everyone has the following freedoms: freedom of conscience, religion, thought, belief, peaceful assembly, association, etc. The right to vote. Then they talk a little bit about democratic rights, even in wartime. Mobility rights, the right to move around. Keep going. That's not applicable here. Legal rights, thank you. This is very important. Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of the person, and the right not to be deprived thereof, except in accordance with the principle of fundamental justice. This means your government can't do things to you without answering to a court. Now, maybe after they've answered to the court says, yeah, they have the ability to do that. But Section 7 means you have access to the principles of fundamental justice. For example, point 8, no unreasonable search and seizure, that probably doesn't apply. Point 9, everyone has the right not to be arbitrarily detained or imprisoned. Probably doesn't apply except for if there's a pandemic internment camp. Arrest or detention, let's skip that one. Proceedings in criminal and penal matters, you have the right to be advised of the offense and a speedy trial, and you can't be a witness against yourself. Scroll down a little bit further. Right not to cruel or unusual punishment, self-crimination, you have a right to interpreter. Scroll down a little bit more, equality rights, official languages, lots of official language, minority languages, it just never ends. The languages, enforcement. Oh, yeah. Look at this. This is it. Thanks for scrolling. Anyone whose rights or freedoms, as guaranteed by this charter, have been infringed or denied, look at this, look at this, look at this, may apply to a court of competent jurisdiction to obtain such remedy as the court considers appropriate and just in the circumstances. So the charter says you are allowed to go to court if you think your rights are hurt. Well, Doug Ford in his Bill 218 just said, no, you can't go to court. Anyone who's going to court, their lawsuit's thrown out, no cost. Well, the charter says you can go to court. Scroll down a little bit more. Multicultural, nothing, privileges, denominational, territories, application. Keep going, keep going. It's been a while since I've read it word for word. Can you go to section, I think, is it 57? You see where it says page 1. Can you toggle that? Toggle that. Yeah, go. Yeah, that's the one. I'm going from memory here. It's been a long time since I've read the whole charter. 57. Is it 57? No. You know, I was going from memory. Is it 37? What's the part that says any law that contradicts the charter is of no effect to the extent it contradicts the charter? Is that section? You know, it's been a while since I've been in law school, okay? So lay off. I'm just saying lay off to no one in general. Justin's not criticizing me for remembering it. It's not section 33. Well, here, I don't even remember. Is it section 37 of the charter? I'm not going to try and guess. This is what happens when you try and remember things in real time with no preparation. Take my word for it, my friends. If you violate the charter with a particular law, you're not changing the charter. The charter changes you. The charter trims your laws down. So if you pass a bill called Bill 218 that basically says no one's allowed to sue because of the pandemic, well, I took you through various passages of the charter that shows you have certain rights, and if your rights are hurt, you have the legal right to go to court. Right? I showed you that. I couldn't find that last section, but ignore that for now. So you have a contradiction here. The charter says you have the right to go to court. Doug Ford says, no, you don't. I just passed a law saying so. Okay. If the charter was simply a regular law, It could be changed every day. And today's laws could be changed tomorrow. You can change any law, right? Well, not the Constitution. The Constitution has a very special way to amend it. You have to get a supermajority. Well, you have to get a certain number of provinces, and you have to get the federal government, and you can't just pass a regular law to change the charter. It's possible to amend the charter, but it's not easy. It's not meant to be easy, because it's designed to withstand gusts of wind that would push the government off course for a moment. Doug Ford is that gust of wind that's trying to push Canada off course for a moment. He's obviously ashamed, embarrassed, and maybe even terrified of what he's done over the last 6 months. So he's passing a law saying no one's allowed to sue me for it. No one's allowed even to find out about it. And every lawsuit that's already existing, I'm hereby dismissing because I'm the tyrant king. But the charter, which is the basic law, the pre-existing law, the law upon which all other laws are built, I took you through it. Again and again, it says you have certain rights, and you can go to court to get a ruling on those rights. And any infringements on those rights are invalid. I'm not a lawyer anymore. I haven't practiced law in over a decade. As you can see, I'm a little rusty on my Charter of Rights. But I think this law is completely illegal. I think it would fail a constitutional challenge. I think this law will end up in the trash heap of history. But more important than all that, imagine a man, a politician, who would introduce such a law. And imagine that he calls himself a conservative. Doug Ford just introduced a law banning you from suing the government for anything they've done other than grossly negligent, which is such a low standard. Like pretty much everything they've done, you can't sue them. If you've got a lawsuit, it's thrown out without costs. You are not allowed to criticize them in court. You're not allowed to assert your rights. You're not allowed to get compensation. You're not allowed to say, I want a review of this. He just said you can't do it. No, I don't think that's how it works in Canada. Maybe in the Doug Ford Party. I'm not even going to call it the Conservative Party. It's not conservative anymore. The Doug Ford Party says Canadians do not have the right to sue for negligence, for screw-ups, for bad behavior. No, that's not lawful. That's not conservative. It's very embarrassing. What'll be interesting in the days ahead to see, what does the Canadian Civil Liberties Association have to say about that? I'm kidding. You think they care? What does the Liberal opposition have to say about it? What are you kidding? They'll love it. What do you think the media party has to say? They'll love it. Randy Hillier, good for him for sticking up for Ontarians. All right, my friends, it's 1:04. I would normally say goodbye, but I want to check in on my friend Sheila. And there's some Super Chats. Why don't I whip through the Super Chats while, Justin, if you can get ready to put Sheila's tweets up. But just let me go through the Super Chats. Lushby bought $5. Ezra, you and your whole team are simply fantastic. Truth matters. Thank you for all your hard work. Well, thanks very much. I'm so proud of the team. We're firing on all cylinders these days. We're covering news across the country, and boy, we're making a difference in Australia. Just wow. Congrats to Avi Yamini. Jose Sanzana, $21. Do you believe the U.S. election polls are accurate? According to the fake news, Biden is leading. Maybe they think we all have stupid written on our forehead. I say Trump 2020. Well, boy, the parallels between this and 4 years ago are so clear. The establishment, the polls, the media are all against Trump, but Trump and the deplorables have a lot of energy. I think that there's two things that are different. I think the media is insane. They were simply crazy last time, now they're insane. And the big tech companies, social media, full-blown censorship, and we don't even know about half the censorship they're doing. Downranking search results, boosting other search results. They do that to us. They don't hide it. We ask questions. We ask questions of our Google rep all the time. why, when you type in Rebel News, do all these awful things show up when they have so little search engine optimization, so little traffic, but these amazing things don't show up. It's because they de-boost Rebel News and they boost their favorite sources. And this is not a conspiracy theory. This is what Google officially says on its blogs, on its policy statements. So yeah, absolutely, they're going to use big tech to shift things 5%. They're going to try and steal votes like they do every time. They're sore losers. The Democrats are sore losers. They're talking about packing the court, and they just, you know, they pretend to be Democrats. That's the name of their party, but I think they're hardly that. Margaret, in answer to your question, I think Trump's got a real chance. Margaret Granny McKay, $7, masks for municipalities. What do you know about this? They had a website with awards program for masking. Website removed, but it was archived. I haven't heard of it. I'll have to take a look. Oh, the masks are big business. I don't know if you saw the story the other day of some Trudeau-connected ex-Liberal MP who got a $250 million contract to make PPE, and he just set the company up 11 days previous. I mean, just corruption everywhere. Crystal Lamont, $10. What can Randy achieve by speaking out? I totally agree with him. So now what happens? He says he disagrees. Now he needs backers. Not sure if I'm being clear. You are being clear, Crystal. The number one thing he can do is speak out. The number two thing he can do is use his resources and his access to the legislature. He has staff. He has researchers. There's the library there. He can. There's a lot of things he can use. Question period, as he's done. So he has tools that the rest of us don't have by virtue of being in that parliament. Dr. $5. That bill sounds like what Governor Whitmer from down in the U.S. and Michigan was doing. I'm not familiar enough with what she was doing, but I think a judge will swat this out pretty quick. Judges like to, judge. They don't like to have some partisan premier say, oh, judge, you don't want to judge these things. Well, actually, that's what judges do. They judge things. Viking Insane, $2. I see a Weimar-style future for Canada. Well, we got to fight every day. That's what we do here at Rebel News. Lisa Proust, $2. Thank you, Ezra, for teaching me the law. Well, thank you. And, I just read through it, and I forgot the one section I was looking for, and, of course, I'll find it as soon as we're done here, and I'll be embarrassed. Ross and $7. You cannot sue a politician because of their shoddy work. They're mostly all lawyers. Well, listen, I mean, we want to have some protections for individual people working in a government who are doing something that the government does wrong. I mean, it's the same thing if you sue someone at a company. If someone who works at Hudson's Bay does something wrong to you in the course of their employment, you sue the company, really, and they indemnify the individual worker. I think you want that for an individual bureaucrat, unless they're doing gross negligence. But to not be able to sue the government at all, unless the whole government is grossly negligent, that's absurd. Viking Insane, $2. Doug Ford's Liberal Premium impression is on point. Yeah, you know what? It's going to be incredible to watch how the media party, the CBC, the Toronto Star, the wokerati drop Doug Ford like a sack of potatoes during the election and just stab him in the back. They're just waiting. And he'll deserve it. And he'll look around for the deplorables, his base, Ford Nation, say, hey guys, I'm back. And they'll say, yeah, see ya. Lisa Proust, you, Sheila, and David inspire me to go without a mask. Well, you know what? I don't have it here on my desk, but I love wearing my mask exemption button. It is the number one source of my mental health. Go outside without a mask. And no one bugs me when I got the mask exemption button. No one's bugged me yet. I'm ready for that to happen. Hasn't happened. Hard Money, $3 fist bump, thank you. In Darkness, $10. Vote David Menzies for the greatest Canadian Don Cherry Award. He's got that Don Cherry style, doesn't he? Renee Boyer, $5. I'm naive and I don't support the idiots in Caledonia who are breaking the law. Send Six Nations police, they'll clear them out. I don't know enough about it. I know that David's down there doing some great reporting. Alan Miller, $5. Where can one find information on upcoming protests for the Toronto, Mississauga area? I don't know. And I don't want to recommend anyone because I don't feel that I have enough information to confidently recommend. But I know for a fact there have been protests at Yonge and Dundas Square and at Queen's Park. I don't know who's organizing them. I just know that historically speaking. All right, it's 1:10. I want to invite everybody here to go to Sheila Gunn Reid's website, her Twitter page, that is. And let's take a little look-see here. Judge FEMA isn't clear what difference it makes who made elections, complaint, or how the complaint came to be. Swanberg argues that Rebel News needs to be informed to be able to mount a legal defense relevant to the types of submissions. Swanberg presents third document dated January 14th from Elections Commissioner, a notice of adverse finding just 5 days after a lawyer asked for particulars and disclosure. Finding us guilty of breaking elections advertising, offers a proposed penalty of $5,500. Third document lets us know for the first time that the complaint came to Elections Commissioner by way of Elections Alberta. Not clear from this doc if Elections Alberta made the complaint on their own or if it came from the public to Elections Alberta. Swanberg, paraphrased, this document from Elections Commission is a finding of fact that is applied to the legislative framework. The Rebel News required to be registered with Elections Alberta. Swanberg, read page 3 of Notice of Adverse Finding, indicates that the Elections Commission had turned after this to the nature of a fine. It is indicative that the investigation had concluded, that the only thing left to decide was a penalty. Swanberg, the only way the Elections Commission can publish the findings of an infraction on the elections website is if an infraction of the act, as was indicated in the Notice of Adverse Finding, meaning investigation concluded without the participation of Rebel News. So let me explain what that means. If the election commissioner published their finding that we were in contravention, obviously that means the investigation's over, duh. It was called Notice of Adverse Finding. So our lawyer said, hey, yeah, we're going to make some submissions. Okay, Christmas is over. Thanks for waiting. We're going to make some submissions. And they found us guilty right after that. That's a little bit incredible. Swanberg, Elections Commission wears 2 hats, investigator and judge, combined role. And he was seeking submissions on penalty. Only input Elections Commission wanted from us was on submissions for an appropriate fine for a fake crime we were convicted of in a secret trial. Yeah, so they did not let us even make our case other than, okay, how much do you think? We all know you're guilty. You haven't had a chance to respond to it. You're guilty. Here's notice, you're guilty. Now the only thing we're going to talk about is the fine. Doesn't work that way. That's why they panicked when we said we're appealing. They said, oh, no, don't go to court. We'll take away the fine. We'll just give you a reprimand. No. The only thing I would have accepted is totally dropping the case and an apology to me, to Sheila, to Kian, to Rebel News. Again, I said, why is Jason Kenney funding this? These are government lawyers working for the government of Alberta on the other side. Why are they doing that? Rachel Notley lost the election a year and a half ago. Why is Kenney making Alberta taxpayers fight Rebel News? We've spent $50,000. They've spent $250,000. Why is that happening? Do you know why? I don't know why. Well, I'm going to follow Sheila throughout the day. Let me pitch one more time, rebeltrial.com. And it's a website where we put it up this morning. Thanks to Sarah for putting it up this morning. Let's just take one more peek at it. So if you want to help us pay our legal fees, I'd be grateful. Scroll down a bit. Really what's interesting about this website, besides Sheila's tweets, is you can see the documents. Now, some people won't have the time, they won't have the patience to go through the legal documents. But yeah, we have documents there with the lawsuit. Maybe it's just loading on your page. There's a ton, there's so many things on this page. So we got the lawsuit itself, and then we got the letters exchanged, and it's all there. All those PDFs. So if you want to do some reading, there's a lot to read. That's a very large website. Maybe there's a lot of stuff that's loading, thumbnails and stuff. I think we can win. I don't always say that in court. We lose sometimes because we fight every fight. Yeah. So there's the lawsuit itself. Can you click on that for 1 second? So you can see we filed this lawsuit back in February of 2019. So it's just loading. So it's almost 2 years old. If I recall, it was called an originating notice, and we amended it. So anyway, I won't go through it now. Yeah, originating application, Court of Queen's Bench of Alberta in Edmonton, Rebel News versus the Election Commission of Alberta, amended originating application. You can see our lawyer's name. His name is Michael Swanberg. And I'm not going to get into it, but just scroll. How many pages is that? 18-page lawsuit. The red ink is the amended stuff. We amended the lawsuit after the original version. We took out some stuff, added some stuff. We have some of the key facts, like there's their letter to us. Just a total clown show over there. I just don't understand why the government of Alberta is still doing this to us. I don't get that. Maybe you understand. I saw Super Chat just sneak in there. Let me find it again. Renee Boyer, $2. I meant native, not naive. Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't read that right. Okay, well, it's 1:16. We're going to say goodbye. Did I get all the Super Chats? I think I did. Do we have a dog video today? We do. All right. Well, as you know, Justin curates a dog video every day. Makes me feel a little bit better. I enjoy watching them even just for 5 seconds. And then I go back to my busy day. So I'll say goodbye to you now. And here's Justin's dog video.